Okay then. So, I'm assuming that you've watched the first video about the basics of merchanting, which is, buy low, sell high, all that good stuff. So, today we're going to be focusing, now we're going to be focusing on some more advanced, some more advanced topics about that, which is long-term projections and market speculation, especially speculation about what the market will do given that an update is coming. Now, some people do not know, in fact, nobody knows how the market will react to an update. However, I do have some personal experience in trading during a market change. It wasn't exactly a good experience, mind you, but it was a learning experience. So, we're gonna whilst I'm sitting here getting my experience points and using up my Unity card, we're going to be having a look at the upcoming events and giving my opinion, basically, on how I think the market will react. We'll also have a look at the cash shop, or the recent cash shop, to see how that's going to affect the market prices. This was one of my previous videos. So the first thing that you want to do is go to MapleStory's site, the official news site, the next one here. So you as a merchant, what you're looking out for in particular is balance changes. Balance changes, out of all of the things which I've seen in games, have had the most biggest effect on the market prices of goods within any of those game markets. By far, there isn't anything in the game which has impacted market prices of a good than changes to its balance. And as it happens, we have an example of an update which is going to change game balance for one particular commodity in a game, which is, of course, is the familiar card update. Now, at the moment, a familiar card, in particular, big spiders, mutant ribbon pigs, mutant snails, all of that good stuff, they have an actual price tag. People buy them. They have a decent market share. It's a niche market. It's not part of the main market, but they are things which people need. Before this point, you absolutely needed a mutant ribbon pig to be able to get higher drop rate. It was a massive 60% drop rate. Now, what we should ask ourselves is, what's going to happen to that card when this update hits? And if this page gives us any information, we need to take that information in when we're doing our merchanting. But even if we don't find any information here which points towards changes, which we'll probably find at least something, one thing is that the market is going to be uncertain of what is going to happen in the future. The market doesn't know what's going to happen, and so we're going to have panic sellers. This means you should expect one of two people in a market. One is someone who's trying to make an absolutely massive profit while he still can by making absurd price listings, with some limited success maybe. The other one is you're going to see a lot of people who are selling off their stock because they do not know what that stock is going to be worth after the update. So we have to discover some kind of certainty about what's going to happen in the future if we're going to keep on selling in that market. So the update is for players regarding information, obtain multiple familiar cards. Previously it stated that players should receive up to 3 duplicates. Instead, players will have up to 3 familiars automatically registered. Updated, clarified some information regarding Fox Familiar availability, while Fox Familiars are available in both cash shop. Blah blah blah. With changes to just about every single part of the system, which is a big, these are big words for a merchant here. There's lots to cover here, but we hope to enjoy that the allows every familiar from the mightiest dragon to the lowliest slime to reach their full potential. We don't really care about anything in that potential to us, the only thing that we're concerned about is how this is going to affect the prices of two particular familiars that we could be selling right now, which is the Big Spider and the Mutant Pig familiar. If we can find information about what's going to be happening to them, we're good. We won't have to worry too much. If we can't find information about them, we have to speculate. And speculation is bad. This is why it's affecting our prices, right? The familiar UI has been overhauled, which doesn't really matter to us. Familiars no longer have static stats and level requirements. Instead, they now grow in strength alongside the player. This, I think, is bad news, because it means that initially you're probably not going to be getting 60% drop rate anymore from your familiars. You're probably going to be getting something like, it might scale to 60%. You might never reach 60% again, but I doubt that it's going to be a straight up 60% to the potential of drop rate. I also think that when they're introducing potentials here, you're going to have a situation where you've got item drop as a potential for pets, similar to how you have it on rings, which I'm not sure how to feel about that one. I don't know if it's restricted to one pet, or if you can mix and match potentials, or whether any pet, any pet in the game can basically have any of the potentials that you want, basically making certain familiar cards completely redundant, which will absolutely, that market's gone. There is no market there anymore. Familiars no longer have static stats and level requirements. Instead, they now grow in strength alongside the player, earning experience from defeating. Yeah, we've seen that. Familiars now use the same rank names as armor and weapons. Yes, we know this one. Fox familiars can be fused for more rank points than normal. You can purchase them, so this is a cash grab. This is also an important thing to take note of. This, depending on if the cash shop item in question is good, or that if people want the cash shop item, the Maple Point market is going to be affected. It's going to have a knock-on effect on the Maple Point market, which means that for the same amount of Maple Points, that you're basically going to be able to get more or less Maple Points depending on if the changes are good. In this case, you're probably pretty much guaranteed to see that the Maple Points that you can get for 100 million is going to be going down, which means that it would imply that it's a Maple Point seller market. I would start selling when that points go down anyway. Shop in reboot, non-reboot worlds only, so it definitely implies that it is a pay-to-win feature. Unfortunately, it's not going to be too pervasive though. Additional familiar summoning slots can be unlocked, allowing for 3 familiars to be summoned at once. This is potentially a buff to familiars with item drop rate. If you can have one with 60% and another with 60%, obviously that's a lot better than it was before. And if there's no limit, well, it's 3 times better than it was before, and you can't really complain about that one. You might not even need drop gear as much anymore if that was true. It's doubtful whether it is true, but you can always hope. Familiars now deal damage based on both their attack power and the summoning player's own damage, which means that, familiars are always going to have somewhat relevant damage now. How is that going to affect prices? Well, it probably won't if we can't sell them. Vitality gauge has renamed to the summon gauge. Blah, we don't want any of that. The summon gauge will full at midnight. Passive skills have been removed. Actually, this is a relevant topic. The summon gauge is restricted by a familiar essence, which I believe is going to be purchasable from Cash Shop. I think that's the Cash Shop. But if it's a cash shop item, then it's all the more reason to suggest that, Maple Points are going to start being more expensive. Invest in Maple Points now, I guess. This is the entire point of this video. It's that speculation right there. If this is true to be a cash shop item, and we already know that Fox familiars are, then you want your Maple Points while they're cheaper. and then you sell them when they're worth more. This is down to the basics of earning money, right? Passive skills have been removed, and familiars will now be granted 2 potentials based on their rank. These potential bonuses have variety of effect, blah. All players begin with 100 slots. I bet you now this is going to turn into a cash shop coupon. Yep, familiar slot expansion coupon up to a maximum of 2,000. Non-reboot world only. This is almost certainly a cash shop item. This is just another slot expansion mechanic, which already could cost people a whole bunch of cash if they're impatient. Corona. When first started, all familiars are level 1 and will gain 1 experience when the player defeats monsters near the player's level with a familiar summoned. Level... non-reboot worlds only. The familiar breakthrough card, purchasable. Again, another cash shop item. Another reason to believe that the maple points are going to increase in cost. It can basically increase them to unique or legendary. It's a jump start. Easily worth checking out maple points. Just looking at this update. Leveling up a familiar results in increased attack power and defense, with higher ranked familiars gaining more bonuses. Common and rare, 0 minimum, blah blah. I'm not too sure how this is going to affect us really. This is attack power and defense. It's not really huge. I mean, 8 minimum on attack or 12. I'm not really that impressed. But it can stack up to 3 times, can't it? So it gets more significant when you stack them. Upon reaching level 5, common and rare turn up to rank up, increasing the rank to unique. All of them can basically rank up, which is good. But yeah, the Suspicious Fox similar card creates Suspicious Fox, can be used as fusion material. Booster packs, unique booster packs, cash shop, all those cash shop item everywhere, cash shops exploding. It's a brilliant opportunity for maple points. I'm actually in the middle of trading maple points at the present moment in time, actually. It is something that free players can access if they're willing to pay 100 mil to get a base amount of points. And depending on how many points that you can get right now, I think it's rather an inflated amount of points that you can get in Luna at about 420, even higher, 440 if you're lucky. I have no idea why they're exploding like that. They should be going in the opposite direction. It's weird to me. But, yeah. Maybe it's because there's more players, and with more players, there's just more people who are just, straight up willing to dump cash into the game. Therefore, it's inflating that slightly. Either way, it just seems like a really good time to get maple points with your millions of SOs at this point. Familiar UI now has a shop where familiar points can be spent on a selection of items. Booster... I've already seen that. There's changes to existing familiars. This is what we want. Existing registered familiars will be granted potential bonuses equal to the familiar stats that they held previously if a similar potential is available. If an old potential doesn't exist, it will be replaced with another one. I don't like that. It looks bad because it looks like item drop could be on the shelf. It could be getting axed. Yeah. Registered familiars will granted potential bonuses equal to the familiar stats that they held if a similar potential is available. Well, I hope it is. I hope you can get drop rate, because otherwise, my interest in familiars is cratered at this point. Those players will be that acquired the same card multiple times to increase their familiar's vitality, or up to 3 of those familiars registered. Blah blah blah. May players that purchase the legendary for blah blah blah. So, FAQ. Will there be a method of checking a monster's information? that is similar to how the Crusader worked. No. Okay. So the Crusader Codex information book will be getting shelved, axed if you want. How can red familiar cards be obtained in reboot or non-reboot worlds? Red familiar cards will be purchasable with NX in the cash shop, so even more reason to buy Maple Points. This is a Maple Point booster update. It's as simple as that. How can familiars reach the legendary rank? Red familiar cards are required to rank up to legendary, which can only be acquired in non-reboot worlds. How will familiar potential change? Are they re-randomized when they tier up? When they do, the potentials will be reset, so it's kind of like cubing, to be honest, and everyone just loves cubing, don't they? Everyone just loves randomness and RNG, especially when it's involved in a fucking cash shop item. That's just absolutely classy, isn't it? Will there be compensation for old familiars that have more than one vitality, or will a vitality transfer? If a player has purchased 3 familiar cards of the same kind to increase their VIT, it will have 3 familiars of the type registered, etc. Drop rate of cards. Drop rate of cards will not change with the update. So if there's anything which is going to affect the pricing of the cards, drop rate ain't it. Right? But what will affect it is what those potentials are. You want to find out if those potentials are going to take away drop rate, because obviously that will severely impact the usefulness of the big spider and the mutant ribbon big. They'll basically be blown up. They won't be used anymore. Will there be an option to hide familiars or change the transparency? I mean, we already can. There is currently no option to hide or adjust the transparency of familiar. Well, I mean, I already do this. It's affected by skill transparency, so will the registered familiars prior to revamp be able to increase rank or use red familiar cards while still keeping their pre-revamp familiar effect potential? There are no restrictions on ranking up familiars that were registered pre-revamp, but their potentials will be reset upon rank up or on the use of the red familiar card, just as with the others. So, yeah. I think, yeah, and we're at the end anyway. I think from looking at this update, we've already gotten something that we can discuss when we're talking about market speculation and how to make a profit from that. So, now that we have market speculation, what do we think is going to happen when this update comes around for the familiar revamp? Well, the thing that I think is going to happen is, with all of that massive boost to the cash shop items and the necessity of boosting your familiars to now gain, that perfect edge at the end of the game, familiars now become more necessary to basically reach the highest damage boost possible, right? This makes familiars necessary for progression in some sense. And with the amount of cash shop items which is going to help progress that, you're going to see that Maple Points have increased in value. This means that if I were betting on anything happening with that market, it's going to be that Maple Points are going to be the best thing that you can invest in at the present time. And I'm actually in the middle of doing a sell-off on my Maple Points, but I'm not selling them for the going rate at the moment. I'm selling them for 350 each. And the actual price that they go for at the moment is like 420 to 440. But I'm not selling them for anything less than that amount, because, to be honest, I don't care what the market is like today. What's the market going to be like tomorrow, right? That's what really matters at the end of the day. Today, if you were to be selling at the Maple Point prices, you'd be selling on the bottom of the V. What you want to be selling at is at the top of that V. But I would even sell for halfway. at the moment. So now that we've got market speculation out of the way, we can start talking about an entirely different subject, which is market loss. Loss is something which every trader is going to actually encounter. There's no way about it. You are going to encounter losses whilst you're doing trading. This is statistically true because if you were to make 100 trades and you have a 99% success rate, you know, you're going to expect that at least one of those trades will fail. What matters is how big that fail is. Now, the wise trader never puts all of their eggs in one basket. If you were to make, for example, 50 trades at 50 mil, and all of those trades you gain 10 mil, for example, which is feasible, right? If you went along and you spent 50 billion to buy an item and you only managed to get 40 billion out of it because the market tanked the next day, that's 10 billion gone. Yeah, it more than makes up for all of those profits that you had. It's a bad idea to just throw all of your money at this one thing and hope that it succeeds when it could boom on you. It's like everything else in life, isn't it? But if you're wise, there are ways to safeguard against this, which is never put more than 10% of your resources into a single trade, unless you are a very risky person, I would say. 50% of your resources, you know, that's half of it gone if it fails. But here's the trick: if it fails, it's not going to fail completely. This isn't like you put in 50% of your resources and suddenly tomorrow you're going to be down 50%. No, you're going to be down at most 10%, because you can always just resell what you lose unless the market has completely exploded, which rarely ever happens. I have personally only ever encountered that situation once when doing this kind of merchanting in a game, and that was because basically the market had completely collapsed on, say, it was a mid-tier piece of armor, right? And the story goes that they had made it much more obtainable. You could now craft it, basically, and the crafting materials were very easy to get. This reduced the price of the item by about 90% in a day. Now, I had bought, because I didn't think that it was going to tank that much, right? But it did. I had bought it around about halfway into that collapse, and the losses were pretty severe, but even then, it wasn't enough to stop me. I was still making a profit, right? I was still making way more money than I was losing, because in the grand scheme of things, in the big picture, these trades are small. The losses are always going to be small compared to the big gains. So don't be discouraged by the idea that you could lose money. The most that you're going to lose out on as a trader is an opportunity. There is a saying: traders don't care or fear about losing money. What they're afraid of is missing out on an opportunity. And this new maple market is one example of that. They wouldn't want to miss out on an opportunity to make 50% back on a good trade. So think about that. What else do we have to talk about this one with market speculation and losses so far? I think it's been a fairly decently long video so far, so I don't want to boost the recording time too much. Yeah, it's almost half an hour. So I'm going to say that this is enough content for this particular video. We've talked about enough in this video. We can now move on to the next one in the series.